And welcome back. If you guys missed our last segment, go back and watch it. We are returning for segment 3, and we're talking about gambling and the addiction of gambling and what does that mean here in the state of Arkansas. We have an amazing guest, Vena Schexnayder. Excuse me, I got it right the last 2 segments, but anyway, Vena, I'm sorry. Schexnayder. You are an amazing person. You have shared so much with us. I want you to kind of just talk to us now about how did you get to the point to where you are now as chairman? What does that mean? And then give us some statistics and a little data on gambling and the addiction of gambling and all that good stuff.
All right. Well, I'll kind of start with the statistics first.
Okay.
As I said, so in the U.S. right now, the National Council on Problem Gambling keeps kind of the bigger scope of the federal state data. And so there's approximately 2 million Americans across the country, across the nation, that are suffering kind of in silence.
Wow.
That may have compulsive gambling, that have some kind of problematic symptoms for gambling, or just downright have problem gambling and need treatment or recovery services in the U.S. What that looks like, there's 48 states that have some kind of gaming, whether it's lottery, whether it's a casino, or like we call a racino with the horse or the tracks, as we call it. There's also the tribal communities with their own casinos. There's bingo, there's raffles, there's keno with my Ohioans back as I learned. And there's so many other ways to gamble. Then there's also the newest adventure of online sports betting and online gambling, where it's totally accessible 100% on your phone 24/7. 24/7. So
let me tell you, one of the things, just thinking, I'm like, gambling is a problem, but yeah, it is a problem. It can be, you don't think about, if you're money conscious or a financial, frugal with your finances or whatever, you don't think, I can possibly get addicted to, casinos or game, whatever it is with gambling, right? But neither are those that are addicted to the alcoholism or the drugs or any of the other addictions. No one ever wakes up and says, I want to be an alcoholic, or I want to be an ad. I don't think people mentally are self-conscious about that part. And so if it's like foreign to people and people are like, well, how do you get addicted to gambling? There are things that I know that studying just the psychological ways of how people attract people to the casinos and all of that. Can you just touch a little bit on some of the things you share with me with the lights and with the enticing ways of getting people to come into these casinos and all of that?
Right. And so as we talked about a little bit about mental health and maybe depression or stressing or stressors, right? Everyone has stressors, I like to say, in the clinical sense. Whether it's the day-to-day grind of getting to work or getting to school on time, getting something turned in on time, meeting deadlines for payments or such, or, those unexpected emergency expenses, things come up within our lives, right, from day to day. But it's really on how mentally and physically and emotionally we can adapt to cope to those things.
Right.
And sometimes people turn to, a form of entertainment, right, without realizing that background of trauma and stress that they may have in their lives. And sometimes that fun, 1-hour game turns into something that's a daily habit that might not be so healthy, right? And that's why I like to say that, there's always, ways to identify and kind of stop. And as we call it in the industry now, a play pause to kind of recognize, like, how long have I been sitting here? How long have I been on my phone? Are there other needs that I'm, neglecting to offset the fun that I'm having? And so all of those things kind of, can look different, but those are signs and symptoms that someone might have an issue. Alongside with, with regular addictions of substance use or misuse, sometimes those things can be genetic. But it also is, again, like I was saying about the lights and just the smells of walking into a room and hearing the sounds and those kind of things, or seeing it on your phone, and all those little colorful animations are going across the screen, and you get excited about that. I would, right? That we're humans, we get excited about those things,
right?
And that's how with the council, we are really here as the Arkansas Problem Gambling Council to help those with problem gambling. Right, because the difference in verbiage and language. So there's problem gambling that identifies and helps to treat persons that have issues from compulsive issues with gaming and gambling, right? And that's called problem gambling. And then there's responsible gambling. That's more of a prevention side and a prevention message, so that it kind of coincides with like the 1-800 number, right? Because at the end you get the 1-800 number if and when you identify that it's an issue. But with responsible gambling, our gaming messages, we kind of, put those little tidbits in your ear, and those PSA and those, set your limits and know your odds, that kind of verbiage. That's where that comes from. With knowing the difference between the problems or also the prevention before it becomes a problem. Right.
Now, I'm about to put you on the spot, right? Because I think it's so important. You're a big time person. I have some celebrity status in the studio today, y'all. You just don't know.
No.
She's huge. Like, tell us, number one, you can just kind of talk about how did you get to where you are, and then where are you now? Because you are like on the national DC level. You're big time.
So, you give me too much credit.
You are big time.
No. So fast forwarding, from the call that happens with my husband, and then the call out to the 1-800 number for those help and resources, Googling what the National Council of Problem Gambling Services actually helps to do, make a call out. Again, some folks already remembered me back in the day. I used to live and work in Washington, D.C. for a few years for substance use addiction services with the National Association of Drug Counselors.
Told y'all she was big time.
Shout out to NADAC. That's my that's my family. That's my home. And so made a call out to the National Council, and they said, we've got a call from Arkansas coming in. Now, this was normal daytime hours. And so I tell them who I am. I'm like, I'm Vena Schexnayder, and this is not a work call. This is a personal, like, this just hit home. Gosh. This is a personal call. Wow. I need help. I need help from my spouse, and where do we go? What do we do? And so they give me other resources for outpatient and a few inpatient residential services, just a few. And then they say, we remember you from the substance use field back when you worked national in DC. What do you want to do now? And I said, I just need to get some help. Right? And they said, no, let's schedule a meeting and let's see if you can start services in Arkansas.
Wow.
And here lies and born that the ARPG Council, or the Arkansas Problem Gambling Council. Really excited to say that I whispered in silence that there's a new addiction out here, guys. There's a gambling addiction out here. I know. Take it from me, it's real. And I whispered that for about 2 years to other health officials, to my friends and family that's here in Arkansas, to other professional counselors and my social work group of cohort friends and family. And they said, okay, well, what do you want to do about it? And I said, I got information from the National Council, and they want us to start a board. They want us to start a council. They want us to start a group. And so that led us to, in 2019, 2020, finalizing things to start a 501c3 nonprofit organization for the Arkansas Problem Gambling Council. So we are officially 1 year old and some change. We was officially affiliated back last March of 2021. So really excited to say that I have a very well-rounded and diverse group of not only mental health professionals, but medical professionals, some of my biology and folks in the marketing fields for substance use and other addictions, all together for a really great cause. There's about 12 of us now that all sits on the formal board, and then a few organizations that have really stepped up within all across the state, actually, Central Arkansas, but all across the state, to really help push out the message for responsible gambling prevention and also problem gambling treatment and services.
That is awesome. I commend you just for even taking a stance, number one, for being vulnerable and saying you need help because you recognize that there was a problem. And that problem affected not only your husband, but the entire family, which addictions do. They affect not just the person that's going through that addiction, but the family. So if you know the numbers, like, what's the percentage of, like, how many people are suffering in Arkansas? Is there like a...
So in Arkansas, the last numbers that were technically captured was from services back in like 2012 or so. I believe actually the last data that they have was from 2015. It's about 2%. So that could kind of range depending on the area. I would say 20 to 40,000 Arkansans. I do know the data from the call center, the 1-800 number. We work, Louisiana Council works very close with the Arkansas Problem Gambling Council on the numbers that we get in monthly and yearly. Last year, they took in around 5,600 calls, so 5,600 calls. Now, I want to say that some of those calls were some people saying, what's on the buffet line? Or what time does a certain casino close? All
the call centers get,
or the call that I got during our little winter storm that said this gas station didn't want to sell me tickets after 8 because they were closing early. So some of those calls are in there,
and you redirect,
and we do redirect those as well to the appropriate entities and organizations. But there are other calls that are a little more serious that are actually there for that, needing that help, for that support, whether it's a GA or Gamma-Non meeting, or whether it's a individual, they need individual counseling or services, or whether it spills over to mental health, other mental health services, or even, something towards other suicide ideations that also gets routed to our good friends at NAMI for services as well. So it's a myriad of calls, but about 5,600 calls.
That's a lot of families. That's a lot of people, which is a lot of families, because that person is tied to a family somewhere.
Right.
And that's not just affecting, as I said before, it's not affecting just that individual, but it's affecting a family. Right. And those are just those that are recognizing that it's a problem, because some people still don't even think that it's a problem.
Right.
And I just, that number is like just so mind blowing to me.
Yeah.
And you're doing a great work. We're going to come back with resources. You may be, or someone someone in your family that you may know may be suffering in silence. And we're going to come back with some resources and just some next steps. So tune in for our final segment with Ms. Vena Schexnayder and the problem with gambling in Arkansas.